Hello. Have you ever felt like a fraud? Have you ever felt that you've not really achieved what you set out to? Have you ever had a sense of inadequacy? A sense of not really fitting in? A sense of undeserved recognition whereby you feel wherever you are, you're not supposed to be there. There's somebody else who should be there. Have you ever felt a feeling like you need to get more external validation? Despite all the achievements you have, despite all the successes that you've achieved, you still feel that you're not good enough. Research shows 70% of adults usually feel this in one or another at their stages of life, especially in our career lives. And more so it happens to women. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the imposter syndrome. At some point in life, we do feel like imposters. We feel like, am I good enough to even be talking to people? Am I good enough to hold this role? Am I really an expert to talk about certain aspects? So the imposter syndrome is a feeling of self-doubt that creeps in over a certain time. What leads to imposter syndrome? We've been raised differently. We've been socialized differently. Probably one of the reasons why imposter syndrome happens is probably you were raised by parents who are very critical about your performance. Probably your parents used to compare you with your siblings, probably who will excel in different areas. So imposter syndromes develops from a sense of trying to be good enough, trying to please either your parents, trying to keep up with standards, trying to keep up with public face. In this era of social media, actually, the imposter syndrome has become more, it's being experienced more. Simply because most of us now have a voice. We have a voice to channel our thoughts. We have an opportunity to see how others are perceivingly living their lives. So the imposter syndrome has taken more shape over the years, of course, with the influx of technology. What are the symptoms of imposter syndrome? When you're feeling like you have a lot of self-doubt, yes, you've achieved, but you still feel like you have a lot of doubts within you. That feeling of being inadequate, that feeling of you're not good enough, somebody else should be doing what you're doing. You're even afraid of taking up some roles, or you're even hiding some achievements that you have. You're shy of even speaking out. You're shy of even sharing something because you think people will think you're a fraud. People will think you're not good enough. You've imposed yourself in this particular situation. So the imposter syndrome is just that negative voice that keeps on coming in at the back of your mind, and probably it was brought about when you're growing up at some point. It can also have something to do with your personality. Maybe you're not an extrovert. Maybe you're not confident enough. Maybe you're not probably well exposed. Probably you don't have a lot of internal affirmations. Probably you've not had a lot of people to encourage you throughout life. And probably you don't really have a clear purpose of who you are, which is very important, ladies and gentlemen. Knowing who you are is a breakthrough in life. Because when you know who you are, you should not feel affected by even a setback or disappointments, because you know that is just temporary. So, symptoms of imposter syndrome, of course, we have the self-doubt, we have negative feeling, we have bouts of depression, we have bouts of anxiety, we have stress that can come through, we have a feeling of You perfection, you want everything to be perfect. Perfectionism is also an indicator of the imposter syndrome. You trying to work very late at work, you thinking you're the only one who can do something, you cannot delegate, you taking a fail so hard, you not taking up roles because you don't think you can be so good at something. You cannot do something unless you know you're quite good at it, because you cannot risk failure. That is a symptom of imposter syndrome. So how do we mitigate through this imposter syndrome? Number one, what we can do is, and another thing before I go to mitigation of the imposter syndrome, when I talk about self-doubt as a symptom of imposter syndrome, I'm talking about chronic self-doubt. You're always doubting yourself. You want to do something, you don't do it. You attempt to do something, you don't do it, because you have a feeling of chronic self-doubt. A sense of intellectual fraudulence. Even though you've gone to school, even though you've studied, you still want to achieve more and more because you don't think you're good enough. Unable to internalize your accomplishments. Yourself, you cannot internalize it. You hide in between people because you don't want to be known. That's an imposter syndrome. Of course, I've talked about perfectionism. Labels in the family. Probably you are labeled as you're growing up. Inability to enjoy success. Inability to enjoy success. There's a hole. You cannot even claim. You don't know what success is. And at this point, I would like to say, why don't we define our own measures of success? Because success is elusive. You can grow up and you're chasing another person who think is successful, and you chase what he or she has, and when you get what he or she has, you still don't get satisfied. You still don't feel successful. So let us define our own measures of success. Let us define what success means to us. So how do we mitigate the imposter syndrome? How do we mitigate? How do we get through this? Now, recognize the imposter syndrome when it appears. Face it, deal with it. You're good enough, you're competent. Speak, raise your voice, fail, take rejection positively, take criticism positively. Own it yourself. Speak up for yourself. Stand up for yourself. Rewrite your mental programming. If you're socialized to think you're good enough, rewire yourself mentally. You still have the chance to do it. Rewire by affirming yourself, by believing in yourself, by doing things regardless of the situation. Regardless of what was said about you, do it. Do it. Talk about your feelings. When you share things with other people, you'll actually also find out probably they've gone through the same things with you, like you. They've been in the same situation like you. And also another way is also helping people overcome their own inadequacies. Helping people go through what you're going through will also help you. And reframe failure as a learning opportunity. Failure is simply feedback. Consider the context in which it happens. If something happens that is making you feel inadequate, so what is the context? Is it someone's opinion that you've taken it to heart? And who is that telling you? Maybe that's just that person's perception and observation. What matters is you. And what matters is how you receive it and what you do with that feedback. And where is it coming from? Is it coming from the honest point of view? Or is it somebody who wants to make you feel small so that they can feel good? And women, we have to get over this imposter syndrome, because it really affects us. It affects us at the workplace. It affects us in our relationships. It affects us generally. because men get over failures quite fast. But us, we can really take something that happens for probably 10 seconds can affect us for quite a long time. We keep on dwelling on it, you keep on going back onto it. Another way is you seek support, of course. Be kind to yourself. Visualize your success. Visualize your own success. And realize that there's never a gold medal for all of us. There's never the ultimate success for all of us. Because your success is not my success. What I perceive to be success is probably not yours. So own yours. And don't measure your success by credentials. That's not everything. Just because you're not a doctor doesn't mean you cannot give your opinion on something. Just because you don't have the title of a professor doesn't mean you cannot give an opinion on something. It's not all about credentials. Take action every day. Little actions. Take actions, take actions, take actions. And you don't have to know everything, sweetheart. You don't have to know everything. Nobody belongs here more than you do. We all belong here. God has given us an equal opportunity. As long as you wake up, as long as you're breathing, God has given you and me the same opportunity, the same air, the same life to breathe and operate on. Being wrong doesn't mean you're a fake. Yes, being wrong doesn't mean you're a fake. Stop comparing yourself. Why are you comparing yourself with other people? Everyone is running their own race. Run your own race. You are here to do whatever life you can. Yes, you are here to do whatever life you can. Own your successes, internalize your successes. Let us internalize our own successes. Finally, and most importantly, I repeat this, define success in your own terms. So, that was just my insight in how you can be able to deal with the imposter syndrome. We live in a very competitive world. We live in a world of a lot of expectations set out on us, a lot of exposure whereby we're wondering whether we are really achieving, are we really progressing? And I would like to shut the imposter syndrome down. Shut it up, shut it down. Achieve, go, define success by your own terms, and live. That is my insight for today. Have a great day. Thank you.